If the pandemic and prolonged lockdowns taught us anything, it has been the value of the arts. From binging movies to listening to albums on repeat, it provided so many of us with comfort in uncertain times. And that value is now being formally recognised by the Irish government, who are trialling a basic income for artists. Under the pilot program, 2,000 arts and culture workers will be paid the average national income of about $550 a week for 3 years. It's hoped this will support artists in their work while assisting in the sector's regrowth following the pandemic. So what does Ireland's art community think? The Drum's Bethan Smoleniec spoke to course coordinator at Dublin's National College of Art and Design, Declan Long, to find out.
What's happening in Ireland with this basic income model is that it is across the sectors of the arts. So we have everybody from, ballet dancers to sculptors, musicians, to people working in the more sort of backstage areas. What they're not looking to do at the moment is apply a situation where you apply based on a certain kind of financial need. And that would be consistent with a sort of universal basic income model, where they really are trying to sort of look at how this would affect people with different needs at different levels. There are people who would be concerned that it's only a token gesture, that it's an experiment which can't really deliver. This is a good initiative. The funding levels are going to stay up for the foreseeable future. The financial input for this new basic income initiative hopefully will make a difference. It also sort of acknowledges lots of people who work very hard in a society who don't get paid. And so whether young or old, a basic income like this can provide that kind of platform that just enables people to be able to not have to rush to a part-time job while they're also, picking their kid up from school and trying to get to a studio to develop their career as an artist. So it might be just enough.
Karen, many people in the artistic community felt that the government didn't exactly bend over backwards to ensure they stayed financially afloat during the pandemic. Can you even imagine something like this being contemplated here? And I should actually quote the Irish Minister for the Arts, who's really stressed this is about helping after the damage of the pandemic. She said this is once in a generation policy intervention post-pandemic to make sure the damage is not permanent.
Well, this is the time for the blank piece of paper and the reworking of the system, isn't it, really? We've had to break down so many things we took for granted. We work differently now, we work from home. All of those ideas we used to have been challenged by forces beyond our control. So it would be good to think that governments were prepared to consider ideas that they might have automatically rejected in the past. And I do think, governments in Australia, their first instinct would be to say, no, this is bad. But, in itself, it's a creative idea. I spoke to a friend who's a professional musician. It's his full-time job today, and asked him what he thought. And he said, well, look, we have a system that is geared to offering unemployment benefits to people and then forcing them into jobs that they don't like or they're not very good at in return for that government money. Why not be supporting them to do good jobs that they may be good at, to nurture the talent, which ultimately is of community benefit, because we all get something from the arts. So I do think it's an interesting idea, but I think I can see why a government like the Irish government is more willing to adopt it when you've got a perception, at least in Ireland, that that the culture is deeply rooted in the creative arts. I mean, so is ours. We've got an artistic culture going back tens of thousands of years. We just don't acknowledge it in quite the same way as they do in Ireland.
And there is actually a similar scheme in San Francisco, just a basic income pilot for artists, and I think it's about $1,000 a month for 6 months for 130 artists and cultural workers. So there's other murmurs around the world. But Karen, we should mention you've got a lot of creative friends, many of whom lost a lot of money during the pandemic, and you're performing in a show with them soon to help raise money.
Thanks, Julia. Well, no, it's not to help
because
raise money.
Because you can sing.
It's just... Thanks, Julia. Well, no, it's a show. I have 2 professional musician friends, and they've invited me to join them in a show where, yes, I will be singing as well. And it's an opportunity for them to put on a professional show now that audiences are back, and I'm the novelty act. Really.
Yeah.
So I would love
to tell us what it's called?
At Smith's Alternative in Canberra on the 1st of April. There you go.
There
we plug for it. Now that you've thrown me off the deep end.
Right in the deep end. I reckon that's awesome. Shane, what do you think?
Look, I like the idea in principle. I also like the idea of a universal basic income in principle. I like the idea of a 4-day week. I think there are a lot of new ways that we're looking at. How do we contribute? What is the value of the work that people do? Is the point of life just to make rich men even richer? Or are there things that enrich us all in a completely different way, such as the arts?
What if we took the assets of the Russian oligarchs,
gave
it to the artistic community?
You've cracked it.
Thank you.
You've cracked it.
Yes.
Well, that's a novel idea.
Jason, is this good policy?
It's a great question. So when we look at a policy analysis, and you said a policy intervention, when you mentioned the Irish Minister of Culture, of Arts and Culture's quote, one of the things she said, and this is a key detail, was she said they needed to maintain the arts sector through this, right? And so we often look at universal basic income as based on the individual, and a lot of the stories we've told thus far in this conversation have been about the individual and what it does for the individual.
Right.
But I think she pretty clearly stated that this is a limited time, it's a limited number of people, and what they're hoping to do by basically, if more people apply than they have spots available, they're going to randomize who is selected. That means from a policy perspective, they're trying to maintain, basically from a randomized perspective, the art sector itself, almost like a time capsule, and carry it through, right? Vice trying to create something for the future. So I think it's, it's what a policy intervention should be. It's very specific, for the time that it takes care of. You can increment it in different ways to see if it works, but absolutely. And, for the love of art, we all should support it, at least in principle.